All right. Well, welcome everybody to this special webinar under these odd circumstances. The webinar today is how to keep your business running and implement secure remote access. I'm James Pearson, president of the Computer Center, if you don't know me. And today, my goal is to talk about the following things. First of all, of course, the world has changed, and I don't know about you, but I don't think it's going to be the same ever again. And what we've got now is a situation where employers are suddenly looking to work from home remotely, social distancing, things like that. So what we're going to talk about is how to plan your work at home strategy for the short term and the long term, choosing the right tools, what you need to know about security, and some productivity tips for keeping your team connected and your business going using Microsoft Office 365. So let's get started by talking about planning your strategy. So first of all, you really need to sit down and think about the things that you need access to. You need to think about whether or not it's just files, Word documents, Excel documents, Google Docs, documents that you're creating in the office, or is there software running in the office on a server, for example, a line of business applications, scheduling, accounting, bookkeeping, QuickBooks, things like that. Of course, if you have applications that are already cloud-based, that makes this much easier to do. But ultimately, you need to sit down and really consider this because that's going to help your long-term strategy. The other thing is, of course, how are you going to communicate? How are you going to communicate with your team? Are you going to have regular staff meetings? How are you going to stay in touch? And how are you going to communicate with your clients? Also important things to think about. And then what are your employees and staff going to need at home? What are the key ingredients that they're going to have in order to make this work? So let's start with that one. First of all, of course, at home, everybody's going to need some sort of computer. So my assumption here is that you're going to be sending everybody home, and they are going to somehow remotely connect to the office or to the tools they need. So everybody needs a computer. Now that computer can be company provided, which has some benefits in that you as the owner of the company control the device. You can control the policies and procedures surrounding that device. You own it and its contents. And if you're working with an IT company, of course, you can also then have more control over maybe the software, the virus, things like that. If they're using their home computer, well, then we have some different things that we need to talk about. And we're going to discuss that, of course, here as well. High-speed internet. Living here in rural Wisconsin, that oftentimes becomes a challenge, especially if we're sharing large files or we need to maintain a stable connection. So internet connectivity speed is something to really consider, also to discuss with your IT department, because poor internet connections may require different techniques to get staff up and productive. Are we going to need some sort of remote control software, remote software? Does that mean that we're going to use something like LogMeIn or some other tool to get us into our computers at work? We're going to remotely control them. Depending on your business and your industry, are we going to need to set up some sort of VPN software or VPN connection between you and your office? Again, question to ask your IT provider, but a VPN is a virtual private network, meaning that when I make this connection, whether it be, usually it's via a piece of software that then connects back to your office, that connection is encrypted and secure. Okay? And from a communication standpoint, what are we going to do with our phones? If you already have a VoIP or a voice over IP solution, it may be as simple as picking up those phones, bringing them home, plugging them in to an internet connection at home. Or you may have to contact your phone provider, have things forwarded to cell phones, things like that. All of these things are part of your disaster recovery and your business continuity plan, which is really what we're experiencing here, is an interruption in business that requires us to put into place an alternative plan to keep business going. So next, let's talk about sharing files. So how are we going to share those files? Well, If you're remote controlling into the computers, of course, you just work on the files on the computer that's still back at the office. Or if there's a VPN connection, there's a possibility that you may actually just open those files on your local computer. This can be a challenge if the internet speeds are slow, so not always a great solution for that. But one of the more common ways, or one of the more popular ways now, without using either of those two types of connections requiring a computer at both locations, requiring some sort of remote control, is to use a file sharing service. These are services like Microsoft OneDrive and Microsoft SharePoint, Google Drive and Dropbox, and these are tools that basically synchronize files between a remote computer, their cloud service, so Microsoft's OneDrive, for example, and then back to your computer at home. When you have a file sync and share service like that in place, it's really pretty seamless, and we don't even need the remote control software for that because the files are synchronized between the two locations, which means that I can actually work on those files on my local computer. It also is a great solution for low bandwidth. Now, the one thing I'm going to tell you is that as a small business, what you don't want to do is have everybody go out and just sign up for Google Drive for free or buy one of the free Microsoft OneDrive accounts or a personal account. And here's why. As a small business, the data inside your network and your client data is your data. When you introduce a variety of different services like that, in which case every employee may go out and purchase their own and they're doing just kind of whatever they want, everybody's very rogue, and you have no way to protect or control that data. So you want to make sure that you're purchasing, for example, Microsoft's business plans. Also, the business plans have better service level agreements and uptime guarantees and support contracts than the personal ones. So it's very important that you purchase the business grade products here. Let's talk about virtual meetings. How are we going to communicate with our staff? I don't know about you, but after a couple of weeks in isolation, everybody gets to missing each other. And I've heard more and more often that people look forward to their virtual meetings now, even if it's over the computer. So there's a couple of different ways to do this. Well, the easiest way is just your phone. I mean, if you're using your phone, some phones, even VoIP phone solutions, still have conference calling features. There's FaceTime and Messenger apps for some basic things like that. You can use a product like Free Conference Call, which is what we're doing here now. Little to no cost involved in that, has screen sharing, and it's a great tool. One of the big guys right now is Zoom. Everybody's talking about Zoom, and that's the big player. Great for video conferencing and multiple people. You get to see everybody's face. The problem with video conferencing, of course, is it takes bandwidth and internet connections, and everybody's got to have a microphone and a camera. The other one I would talk to you about is Microsoft Teams. So two things about Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is more than just a conferencing tool. It's a file sharing tool. It's a collaboration tool. It's a chat tool. So it allows you to do a lot of things, whereas Zoom is just a video conferencing tool, for example. So Teams is a very robust product, a little bit more complex than Zoom, but has a lot of features. The other nice thing is it's already included in your Office 365 plan. So if you're an Office 365 subscriber, you already have and pay for this product. You can make video and voice calls, share files, chats, whiteboards, share your screen. All of those features are already built in, and it works very well with the rest of Office 365's products. So a lot of benefits there, and Microsoft is currently offering it for free. And I'll tell you at the end how to find those links. You can go to our resource page that I'll show you at the end. One thing that you do need to consider, though, is privacy laws, and if you're covered under something like HIPAA, how these all fall into that. So, for example, FaceTime and Messenger are not secure enough to be covered under HIPAA or with privacy laws. Okay. So let's talk about security. So now you've got this dispersed workforce. They're not in your physical walls in your business, and they're using possibly their own computers. Well, the unfortunate part is that the cybercrime business is not sleeping. As a matter of fact, those guys, and it is business, by the way, are looking at this as an opportunity. And what they know is that the home users are even more vulnerable than ever before because it's different. It's chaotic. We're using new technology. So they're really leveraging that confusion and unfortunately taking advantage of the situation. So let's talk about the layers of security everybody has to have. Now, this is a topic for an entirely different webinar, and I do have a webinar I've done on this, but there are 7 layers of security everybody, whether you're at home or in business, should have. I'm going to touch on them real briefly. First of all, the foundation is the updated operating system and patches. So all of your Microsoft patches, all of your software needs to be patched and up to date. You can't pull an old Windows 7 computer out of the closet and send it home with an employee. Why? Because Microsoft no longer patches that. It becomes a security risk and will expose you and your company and your company's data. So you need to make sure you have some way to ensure that all the equipment that you're using is updated and patched. Now, if you're working with an IT company, a good IT company is going to have a service in place to handle that patch management for you. Some sort of firewall, hardware or software firewall. For example, your routers and your access points all act as firewalls to keep the bad guys out. And then you have firewalls like the one built into Microsoft Windows. These all need to be turned on, and they need to be properly configured and updated. Again, this is a way to keep out the bad guys by blocking the ports or the highways, as you would, to let people into the computers. So often I'll find, especially in a home or a small business, somebody will go out and buy a router off the shelf at a box store, and they'll just install it. And they won't even change the password for that, making it extremely vulnerable for hackers and malware and ransomware. Everybody, of course, should have an antivirus program, a good quality antivirus program, and a web filtering program. Web filtering programs might be built into the antivirus, but a web filtering program is a piece of software that looks at the websites that you visit, evaluates them against a list of known malicious websites, and also looks at the content and says, hey, I don't think this is appropriate. I'm therefore going to block it. It might be a threat. I also recommend some sort of email filtering, and I'm going to recommend this, that it be outside of your email software. So it's not your junk folder, it's not your spam folder, it's something else outside. Why? Because we want to block it before it even gets to those pieces of software. The other thing is that 90% of malware and viruses are currently and phishing attacks are currently being perpetrated through email. That's where a lot of these threats are coming in right now. Next, you want to have a backup and recovery system and plan. So you want to have some system that makes sure that your data is being backed up constantly, so that if you get ransomware, or if an employee at home using a home computer with lower security infects your data, that you can restore it. It's more important now than ever before. And then finally, education. Things like this. You need to educate your employees during this time about how to use the technology, its limitations, as well as how to protect themselves against phishing scams and malware. And believe me, there's lots of them going on right now. So for example, we're already seeing more phishing scams coming from, supposedly coming from the CDC about this, or about coming from your company talking about coronavirus. We're already seeing all kinds of phishing scams. So you want to make sure that your staff knows how to spot these. Another really great big tip, I talked about your router before. You really want to lock down your Wi-Fi, especially at home. You need to have that password protected. Don't leave it open. You want to make sure that your router is relatively current and up to date, especially if now you're introducing company files and client data onto a network that you don't control, a home user or employee's network. So use a password. Can't tell you how many times I've walked in and done an assessment for a small business and found that they literally didn't change the password for the router that they put in place. Don't share it. So if you're going to be working from home, my recommendation is you don't share it. You don't share that wireless connection with the neighbors. You don't share it with anybody. You lock it down and you treat it like a business during this time. And I'm also going to recommend that you get the help of a professional IT person to help you set these up. Can't stress enough how important passwords are. Passwords are the first line of defense for just about everything. So what you want to do is make sure that you and your staff are constantly using complex passwords, that you're using different ones for every website and every application, that you're changing them on a regular basis every 30 or 60 days. And if that gets a little confusing or hard, use a password manager like LastPass or something along those lines. So how do we stay productive? And I'm going to talk about this as it relates to Office 365. At the Computer Center here, we are a Microsoft Silver Cloud partner, and that means that we are work with Office 365 and SharePoint and different cloud technologies that Microsoft offers. Well, first thing you're going to want to do is be able to share files. So if you have an Office 365 license, you have a product called OneDrive, and one of its most powerful features is that you can securely share files with others in your organization. So you're not emailing files back and forth. All you have to do is send them a special link. You could even send these files outside your organization, so you no longer have to worry about email attachment issues. Sending a large file to a person that is outside your organization that may not have that may have more restrictions on their email and the size of files. You can even let others edit your files inside their browser. They don't even have to have a copy of Office 365 in order to collaborate on a document with you. And if you need to get a file from someone, it's easy to share a folder with the Anyone link, and I'll show you how to do that, and give them edit access. So when you're sharing a file basically inside your Office 365 folder, you just click the share icon, and then you can choose how they get shared. Is it something that they can share with just the people inside your organization? So really what we're doing is choosing a variety of different security options. And once you do that, then of course in the Shared with Me section over on the left-hand side inside OneDrive, you'll see the files that people have shared with you. So there's an easy way to keep track of them. The other thing you can do is use the Anyone link, and this one, just beware, it really is anyone. If you send a link to a file using the Anyone link, anybody that gets that link can see and access and edit that file, okay? So be careful of the Anyone link, but it's there. You can also use specific people, and if you've already pre-shared it but you're not sure which one you use, you can use people with existing access, and that'll generate a link that doesn't change the access, but that you can resend to somebody. When you do choose the specific people link, the nice thing is that you're going to go ahead and get an option to do some multi-factor authentication. So if I want to share it with a specific person, I'm just going to go ahead and put their name in there, and then I'm going to get a share link, which I'm going to go ahead and send to them. And once I've shared that link with them, they're going to go ahead and get an email. Let me just show you what that verification looks like. So when you use that link that somebody sent you, they're going to be asked for an additional code that is emailed to the email address that you put in that box. So give a second form of authentication. Great way to share with vendors and people outside your organization, but you don't want to use the Anyone link. Now let's say you need to get a file from someone, okay? So that's really easy. What you do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to create a folder inside of OneDrive. And when you create that new folder, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a new folder here, and I'm going to call this Files from Kelly. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to share that folder with the share link. In this case, I'm going to show you that Anyone link here. And I'm going to allow editing. And if you want, you can set an expiration date, which I do recommend, because that way you don't have all of these shared links laying out there. But once you get this link and you copy it and send it to somebody via email, when they open it up, and let me show you what that looks like. When they open it up, and they don't have to have Office, they're going to just see that folder in their web browser on their screen. So now the great thing is all they have to do is use the upload button, or they can drag a file into this web browser to share it with you. Let me just grab a file here and drop it on here. And again, you can use the upload button if they want. Once that's uploaded, let me go back to my view of this. What will happen is it will upload it and I will see it in my OneDrive folder. So let's talk a little bit about SharePoint. So SharePoint is a big product from Microsoft, and it contains lots of features. And if you ask anybody, hey, what's SharePoint? You're going to get 100 different answers. Oh, it's an intranet. Oh, it's a website. Oh, it's a place to file share documents. And all of those things are correct. But the big benefit of SharePoint, especially in the situation we're in now, is that it's a centralized location, or can be a centralized location, much like OneDrive, to share files securely. And I'll go a step further in that we can configure it or set it up so that different groups of people, even remotely, have access to different things, just like the files on your server now. The nice thing about it that's different than sharing these files through OneDrive is that when you share files through OneDrive, they're personal. So I have to be in charge of sharing those files and keeping track of it. Whereas SharePoint, when I set up SharePoint sites, which is what they call kind of folders, I might set up a marketing folder, for example, a marketing site. And I might only give access to that to a couple of people in my organization. The nice thing is that as a company, I have those all in one place, just like my server in my office. I can share them with just who I want, and I can restrict or remove that access at any point in time. So it's a much better way to go about this. So when you store these files on SharePoint, you'll see all of your SharePoint sites. And again, I'm just going to talk about the documents here. But anybody who has access to those sites, you'll see the folks on the right-hand side there have access to this site, and they can see and share the documents. Another nice feature with Microsoft is that we can synchronize those files back to your desktop and use them on an application as well. We also have the ability to add additional kind of pages, making this an intranet or an internal website. And it also integrates really well with Microsoft Teams, which we're going to talk about. It's a great way to combine all the Microsoft products. And they all work very, very well together. So if you've shared your files or uploaded them to OneDrive or SharePoint, then one of the greatest collaboration features is the ability to actually work on these documents simultaneously. So two people can actually be working on the same document at the same time. So now the catch is you have to have these in SharePoint and you have to have shared the documents. So we'll send Molly a copy of the document and we'll send Katie a copy of this link. And once we do that, they all have access to this document. And we can, in real time, all be editing the document, and you'll see up in the top who's editing it and what they're editing it. We can see, because there are little color indicators, what they're working on, and in real time you can work on a document. So now imagine having a call and collaborating on a document at the same time, something that really is huge from an efficiency standpoint and different than what we've been able to do in the past. Okay, a couple other quick applications. A cool app is Microsoft To Do, also included in your Office 365 subscription. This is your to-do list on steroids. It is one of the most best productivity tools that they've included in the package. And again, literally it's a to-do list that you can create any variety of lists. You can check off completed items. You can share them. Every day when you log in, it makes recommendations for you based on the things that didn't get completed. And so if you're a big fan of the book Getting Things Done, then I would recommend, by David Allen, by the way, I'd recommend that you take a look at To Do. It's a great extension of that technology and that philosophy. And you can also share these. So you can share a list of tasks with somebody. So when we talk about collaboration and keeping business going and efficient, this is one great way to do that by using a simple to-do list that we all can see. Another great tip is bookings. So if you're using Office 365 and you're using Microsoft Exchange, the email product that's in the cloud, then you can use a product called Bookings. And the neat thing about Bookings is that after you go ahead and set it up and put in some information, you literally can share your calendar, so to speak, with someone from the outside world. So now if you say are, for example, when I'm trying to get a meeting or a call with somebody, I simply share my bookings link with them, and that person can then see my calendar, and you can set it up for your whole staff. By the way, it's a company-wide product. But then that person can actually just pick what they want. So for example, here we have an initial consult or a coffee delivery as an example. And it creates your own special page, which you can say, hey, how does this work? What are the time increments? Do we have a lead time or a buffer around each time? It can integrate with Facebook so that people can book with you right from Facebook. But it stops all that back and forth emailing. Hey, are these times good for you? No, those aren't good for me. So really, you just send people your link, and they can get on your schedule, and then it appears on your calendar and sends everybody a nice little email. Great productivity tool. Another one that people miss is Forms, Microsoft Forms. So Microsoft Forms is a great product that allows you to create polls, forms, surveys, and so much more. It's easy to use. You can share it within your organization and without. You see the responses. It gives you kind of a summary of them. Boy, I've used it for a whole variety of things, anything from feedback to questions about an upcoming event to just about anything. Works great on your phones as well. Next up, productivity-wise, one of my favorites and one of the fastest growing Microsoft products out there right now is Microsoft Teams. Again, Microsoft Teams is more than just a chat program or a conference program. It breaks things down into different teams. It is persistent, meaning those conversations and files stay there. You can break your conversations out into categories. So for example, here we constantly use it as instant messaging throughout the day to communicate with the staff. But you can also store files. There's a little wiki, so you can just kind of document on the fly. You can add tabs across the top and make things up for just about anything. And then, of course, it's a great conferencing program, which even allows you to record those conferences. You can share files right within that environment. It really is a robust platform. And currently, Microsoft is offering for free assistance to help you use Microsoft Teams to host a webinar or a live event. So they're really working hard to get people to understand this product. Also, they're giving it away free for 6 months. So there's no reason not to take advantage of this. The other thing, too, of course, is if you have Office 365, you already have this product. Just to note that it is a replacement for Skype. That's their version, or that's their intent with this, is to completely replace the Skype with Teams for all kinds of calling and video conferencing. Well, that wraps it up for me. A couple of takeaways. So, this working remotely and using technology to meet with each other, I think, is going to be the new norm in a lot of ways. We're going to find that this wasn't a horrible way to work, except for not being able to see each other. We're going to get introduced to new technologies. It's going to push new technologies to be developed and improved. Your strategy on how you do this really depends on you, your company, your culture, what you need, what you already have access to. So I highly recommend that you use an IT professional to assist with this. You have to be conscious of the security. You are now working differently in environments that you don't control. You have employees using their own computers, their own networks. So we really need to now more than ever be very security conscious, because the bad guys are still out there. They're still out to get you. And again, we highly recommend Office 365 as one of the options you consider. And you may have all of the things you already need to do everything without having to go out and buy another product. So if you have any questions, post them in the chat. Otherwise, if you'd like, sign up for computer-center.com/tidbits and continue to get free, no obligation, weekly Tuesday tidbits with security updates, training, things like that in it. And currently we've built a special page talking about technology and how to get through all of this as it relates to this COVID-19 pandemic. That website is computer-center.com/COVID-19. All right, thanks everybody for joining me today. It was great having you, and I appreciate seeing you.